Hey, what's up YouTube? I'm here to make a video about my Spanish learning and pretty much my history in learning Spanish and also the methods I took to learn Spanish. Now, I do want to say that I'm not perfect in Spanish. I'm nowhere near perfect yet, but I do know a handful of Spanish phrases and terms and, stuff, and I can conversate in Spanish. Not a lot. I can't conversate very well, but I can communicate in Spanish. And so I want to make this video. I attempted to make other videos before, talking about this, but the videos didn't come out right. They were either the audio was kind of bad or the video was kind of scattered in what I was saying. So first off, I want to start by saying that I do speak a little bit of Spanish. I would say that I know enough Spanish to be able to function in a Spanish speaking environment. Saying, like, if I landed in Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, or somewhere, any country that speaks Spanish, I think that I will be able to get off an airport and be able to communicate with the people and to be able to navigate my way around the Spanish speaking community, asking where the hotel is, how much does this cost, what's your name, nice to meet you, and even little side talk, asking, do you have a family, you have kids, how many kids you have a dog, stuff like that. So I'm able to communicate. My Spanish is far from perfect. I wouldn't be the level of Spanish that I have right now. I wouldn't be confused as a native at all. So I do want to say that my Spanish is nowhere near perfect. But I do want to start off, talking about when I started to learn Spanish. And I always wanted to learn Spanish ever since I was a little kid, and that's pretty much where it started at. Now, when I first started learning Spanish, I was in 6th grade. I wasn't really into Spanish, but usually in middle schools or junior high school, as some people call it, you don't have a choice really. You have to have some type of extracurricular language class. And for me, I didn't get to choose Spanish, but we got French because I didn't get to choose Spanish. And we didn't have French class, so they automatically threw us into Spanish class because that's the only language class we had. And so I took Spanish my 6th grade year in junior high, but I really didn't study it. I actually failed the class because I didn't really study it. And the only thing I remember us talking about in that class was, the death of Selena, the singer, the Mexican singer, Mexican-American singer, shall I say. And that's pretty much all I remember us doing, like projects and report on Selena and stuff, because this was like in 1999, and her death just happened, a few years prior, so still very big, impact to society, especially the Hispanic society community. So, I had that Spanish class in 6th grade, and I really didn't learn anything, and I really didn't have the eagerness to learn Spanish. I really didn't care at that time. But it wasn't until after I failed that class that I actually wanted to learn the language. And in that class, we had an actual Mexican teacher. She was from Mexico, so she could have actually taught us a lot. And I think that kids probably learned from that class, but I kind of got in trouble a lot when I was young, so I got suspended a lot, and I really didn't get to stick around or like that, but I ended up failing that class. So my 8th grade year, I took Spanish again. I started off with Spanish 1 again, and this time I had a Caucasian teacher. She actually spoke Spanish very well. I can't, from my memory, from as far as I can remember, she spoke Spanish very well. And it wasn't until I got in her class I didn't really appreciate Spanish culture until I got to her class. Not just Spanish culture, but also Latin American culture. The different cultures within Latin America. because in that class not only did we learn Spanish, but she also used to show us videos of Spanish speaking country, Latin American countries and stuff. So I got to learn a lot about the culture and see how interesting it is, because before that, the only countries I'd been to outside of America was Germany and Korea, just because my father was in the military. So those are the only countries I got to see. I never really got to see Latin America until later in my life. So I was really fascinated about Latin American culture, and it really made me want to learn the language. So I ended up passing that class when I was in 8th grade. But then when I went to the 9th grade, for some reason that credit didn't roll over, because when you go from junior high to high school, the credits are supposed to roll over so they can give you more advanced classes once when you get to high school. For some reason that didn't happen in my case. I passed Spanish, but yet they didn't put me in Spanish 2 when I got to high school, so I had to start all over again at Spanish 1. Now the teacher, this time she was a Caucasian also, but she spoke Spanish pretty well, and I would say out of all the teachers that I had, through junior high and high school, she actually taught the best. I actually learned the most from her. So, we did interaction exercises where we would speak to each other in Spanish, with the vocabularies and verbs and the phrases that we learned. But we will also watch videos, about Latin American culture, Spanish culture, and also watch videos, talking to each other. We will also listen to audio tapes too, and we have tests and all that stuff. So I learned a lot in that class. I wouldn't say that I learned a lot to carry a conversation, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot of verbs. For some reason, we really didn't learn quite too many phrases. So I learned, a little bit of Spanish, and I went through Spanish 1 and 2 while I was in high school. I took 2 Spanish classes because that was all that was required for us to take 2 language classes. So I stopped at Spanish 2. I didn't really want to go into Spanish 3. I don't know why. But so I went over after I got out of high school. I picked up Rosetta Stone, and Rosetta Stone took the basic knowledge I learned, just the basic verbs that I learned in high school, and it kind of added on to there, because Rosetta Stone is basic at the beginning. Yes, it's very basic, but it teaches you, it starts to open up the more and more you go into it, and with Rosetta Stone, I actually learned how to say phrases. I learned how to read paragraphs and stuff like that. But see how Rosetta Stone works, and I'm going to explain to you how Rosetta Stone works, and I'm going to explain to you how the other method works and stuff. See, Rosetta Stone, and I still have it on my computer. I don't think I uninstalled it, because I want to be correct when I say this, so yeah. Okay, so here's Rosetta Stone. Okay, it's opening up. Okay, I'm going to my profile because I want to be correct. Sorry if this is, kind of out of the way, but I do want to be correct in the things that I said. Now, I got only 3 discs. I only ordered the 3 discs because I ordered this a long time ago when they only had 3 discs. So, and I believe that they have 5 discs. So, with every disc, and there's 5 discs. So, with every disc, there's levels. I'm on Spanish level 1, which is disc 1. Now, within every level, there are 4 units. There's 4 units. The first one is basic languages. The second one, unit 2, is greetings and introductions. Unit 3 is work and school. Unit 4 is shopping. So within every unit, there are different lessons. And there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lessons. So, and it ranges within lessons. I mean, the least amount of lessons I've ever seen within a whole lesson, I would say, is about probably 3 lessons. But on average, there's about 10 lessons in every lesson. So it takes time. It really takes time to get through. I would say to get through a whole unit would take a month. And I mean, you can fly through it real fast if you want to. And of course, within Rosetta Stone, they have vocabulary, where you match vocabulary. They have speech, where you practice speaking, and if you get it wrong, they will ding you for it, make you retry. They have reading, and they have a lot of stuff. They really do. They have listening, where you will listen, and they have listening and reading, so and pronunciation. So that's what it is. And then at the beginning, they have a core lesson to every lesson. And then after you get done with the core lesson, the lessons after that will touch back on those lessons. So pretty much how Rosetta Stone work is that you will talk. I mean, it will show you a picture and it will have a sound. So it will say like niño, and it will show a picture of a boy. You're supposed to put those two together and just assume that what he's talking about is a boy or whatever's in that picture. So they will say el avión, and if you see a picture of an airplane, you would think there's an airplane. Now the problem with that is that some people don't learn like that. The reason why they did that method is because that's the method of how parents teach their kids before the kids even know how to speak or to communicate. You know, you communicate sound with images. So that's what they did, and I can understand that. And I think it works pretty nice, but it's not perfect, because there's been many times where I got to a part and I just assumed that what I seen is what they wanted me, is what the word was supposed to be, and I got very far believing that, you know, a certain word meant something and it wasn't really what it meant. So that's the only downside, is because they don't tell you what the words actually mean. I do like their method by which at the end that they will actually tell you, no, this is what this means. You know, you can look in a glossary or something like that. So that's how pimps will work. Now you can't communicate with people, because at first they didn't have it that you can actually talk to a live person, but now they have it that you can actually speak with a live person. I tried that a little bit, but I didn't really get to try it all out like that. And trust me, when I talked to the person, I was terrible, you know. But they will help you through that, and that's because they're trying to fill in the part that is missing, you know, with people confusing words, you know, with the pictures and stuff like that. But at the end of every unit, they have a test, which is called the milestone, and they will pretty much run you through a situation to where you interact, you know, in public, you know, and you have to use all the verbs and all the words that you, pretty much all the terms that you learned before, you know, throughout all the lessons and stuff. So I really did like that. But the problem is that Rosetta Stone is too slow. Like I said before, you can fly through this if you want to. I mean, you can really spend a whole day, if you have a whole day to spend, you know, learning language. You can go through it so quick if you want to, but the problem is that you're not going to retain it. I believe, like with me, when I was doing Rosetta Stone, I would say I probably did somewhere to 3 to a whole lesson each day, and that was quite a lot, because each lesson within a lesson, like I said, there's a lesson and there's lessons after that, about 10 of them. They take somewhere from 5 minimum to 30 to 20 minutes, you know. So you're gonna spend a lot of time going through that, you know, through just one lesson. So sometimes I would do 3 to maybe even a whole lesson in one day, and that's a lot to retain, you know. So, and sometimes I spend like a whole hour, sometimes I spend 15 minutes just, you know, trying to learn a lesson or whatever, and then stop. But usually on average, just to get done with one unit, one out of the 4 units, and, you know, one CD, it would take me about a month. And when it came to me working on Rosetta Stone, since it's so long, I was kind of off and on, you know, with Rosetta Stone. I would stop for a while and then come back, but I'm gonna talk about that, you know, soon enough. But, you know, that's how Rosetta Stone work, and truthfully, I think it's too slow. I do like the teaching method, and I do use it to touch up on Spanish with the other methods that I use. I do go back and revisit this, you know, because sometimes you do need to write it out, you know, Spanish out. Sometimes you do need to speak it, you know, and have the interaction that Rosetta Stone has. But yeah, so I did Rosetta Stone. That's what I did after I got out of high school. And I actually started to do that towards the end of high school, when I didn't have any Spanish classes, because I was still interested in learning because in school I had a lot of friends from Mexico. I had a lot of friends from California that were of Mexican descent. I also had Dominican friends. I had Puerto Rican friends. So, you know, I still had that eagerness to want to communicate with them, because when they would talk, because it's funny, because the Mexicans, this is just teenage stuff. I'm not saying this is how it is everywhere, but the Mexicans kind of had a beef with the Dominicans. I'm not sure exactly what it was about, but my friend who was Puerto Rican, she was kind of in between, because she had a boyfriend. She was dating a Dominican at first, and then she was dating a Mexican. So she was kind of in between. Her brother, her sister, her twin sister, identical twin sister, dated strictly Mexicans or whatever. So she was in between. She would tell me the beefs that were going on. So when they would sit through tables and they would talk, I would kind of understand, because they hung together, but they kind of had issues with each other. It was funny. But I could kind of understand. I could pick up on a little bit of what they were saying. And I always wanted that interest. I always had that interest to want to fully understand what they were saying. And my Mexican friend, I would always ask him, what does this mean in Spanish? Or how do you say this in Spanish? And stuff like that. So I always had that interest. So that's why I picked up on Rosetta Stone. And while I use Rosetta Stone, I will also use my books that I have from school, which I still have to this day. It's funny. So like I said, I kind of fell off Rosetta Stone, and I was looking for another method, but I wasn't sure. So I just stuck with Rosetta Stone until I went to college. When I went to college, I picked up Spanish there, and I had a teacher from Chile, and he was a good teacher, you know. And he pretty much taught the same way that you learn in schools. You know, they teach you the verbs, they teach you the meaning of verbs, they teach you how to structure. They teach you how to structure your sentence. Sorry. Yeah, so they will teach you the structure of Spanish, which I think works to a certain degree. And then it doesn't work to a certain degree, because I really don't want to get so deep into that. But pretty much the foundation that Rosetta Stone, because Rosetta Stone really set a foundation for me in the sense of actually speaking the language. Because before, with high school and middle school, I knew some words. Like I would say perro for dog, and that was pretty much all. You know, I couldn't really structure a sentence. But with Rosetta Stone, it helped me to structure a sentence. You know, even though they were very, you know, they weren't really complicated sentences, it still helped me to structure sentences. So when I got in college, it kind of built upon that, you know, with the teacher that I had. And it was nice to actually have a teacher from a Spanish-speaking country, because you could actually hear how he says the word, how they pronounce it, and he would tell you straight up if you weren't pronouncing it right. Sometimes he would let you slide if he knew it was complicated for an English speaker to say, but it was good to actually get that, you know, that real, that real interaction between the Spanish speaker. So after I got done with Spanish in college, because I only had it once, because I only needed one credit for a language in college, so I only did it once. I did want to take it again, but I never found the time for it, because I had other classes that were much more important that I actually needed, so I never got to, you know, take another step in Spanish. And I would have to pay extra money just to take that class, so I was like, So I was looking for another method to, you know, build upon. And that's when I came across Pimsleur. Now, when I was doing Rosetta Stone, I heard about Pimsleur because I was searching before I even found Rosetta Stone, I was looking for a method that really worked, that would teach me how to speak Spanish. And I came across Pimsleur and Rosetta Stone. I came across Rosetta Stone first because I heard about Rosetta Stone on television. I was watching, Travel Channel one day, and I seen a Pimsleur commercial pop up. A Rosetta Stone commercial pop up. And I was like, wow, okay, I'm going to check it out. So I Googled it, and then some people were suggesting Pimsleur over Rosetta Stone, and other people were suggesting Rosetta Stone over Pimsleur. So I looked at the reviews and I watched some videos to see how they actually were. And back then, at this time, there weren't that many videos on YouTube about either of them, you know, because this was like back in 2009 when for when YouTube was still kind of old. It was a couple years old and stuff, so it was still in its infancy. So you know how YouTube was back then, it wasn't so great. Couldn't really find anything. But yeah, so I seen how Rosetta Stone was interactive, and they also had a demo that you could try. You could try like the first couple lessons, and I liked it. So I went and bought Rosetta Stone, which cost way too much. I think I bought it for like $400. $400 for Rosetta Stone. I can't remember how much it was. I think it was $400. I think I may even spent more. I think I spent more than $400. But yes, it costs way too much. I think really learning should be free to anybody who wants to learn. But Rosetta Stone definitely shouldn't be worth it. I know they gotta make money and stuff, but it definitely doesn't. It's not worth that much. I think maximum it should be like $100 to $200. But yeah, so I chose to do Rosetta Stone over Pimsleur, and then I never really gave Pimsleur a second thought after I got Rosetta Stone, until a friend came to me who speaks Spanish. He's pretty good in Spanish. He wanted to teach his kids Spanish. He wanted, you know, like an interactive program to teach his kids, and I was like, okay, I have Pimsleur, I have Rosetta Stone. I can let you use my Rosetta Stone. But it was funny because he asked, he was like, you don't have Pimsleur? And I'm like, Pimsleur? Why does that sound familiar? And I was like, oh, wait, that's right, Pimsleur. Yeah, I did hear about that a long time ago. He was like, yeah, man, that's very good. I used to have it a long time ago, and all this. And he said that that's supposed to be very good or whatever. And another reason why I chose Rosetta Stone over Pimsleur is because I think NASA used Rosetta Stone. But I think the U.S., I think like the Army and the military or Border Patrol uses Pimsleur or whatever. And he was saying that to me, that, you know, that the U.S. Border Patrol used Pimsleur because Pimsleur is better and stuff like that. So I really didn't give it a second thought again after that. After he said that, I gave him Rosetta Stone. I was like, okay, well, if you want it, if you don't want it, too bad. So after that, I did Rosetta Stone for about 2 years, on and off. And with me, I'm on and off when it comes to Spanish learning, and it's not because I want to or it's intentional. It's because certain things happen in my life to where I can't always practice Spanish. So sometimes I will stop doing Spanish. I will stop practicing Spanish for like up to 3 months. I think that's the longest I went without practicing Spanish. So it's like an on and off, occasion with Spanish. I might study for like 2 months or a month, and then stop for 3 months, and that's how it's been. And that's why my Spanish is not perfect, because I had that's my relationship with Spanish, and I hope to fix it, this time around. But yeah, so I did about I would say probably about 3 to 4 years on and off with Rosetta Stone. And see, me, I'm the type of person, when I stop Spanish learning, say if I finish disc 1 of Rosetta Stone and make it to disc 2 and then I stop, I'm the type of person who wants to start all the way back over to get the fundamentals and make sure that I don't forget anything or didn't forget anything. So that's why it took me so long within all those years. I think the farthest I got up to was the end of disc 2 with Rosetta Stone, and I stopped because it's just so far spread and it takes so long. So after those years of doing it, I went out looking for another method on learning Spanish. And of course, there's tutors and stuff like that, but I didn't want a tutor. I wanted something that I can just pick up when I had the time to actually learn Spanish, because with a tutor you kind of have to dedicate yourself. You really have to dedicate yourself, because you take out that time, you plan that time out of the week to go and see that tutor and stuff like that. So I don't have it like that, have the time like that to do it. So I went looking for another method that I can learn at home, by myself. And then that's why I came across Pimsleur again, and I actually checked it out and see how it worked, on YouTube. And this was about a year ago. I would say this was about a year ago when I picked up Pimsleur, and I actually enjoyed what I seen. I was like, oh my god, it seems so primitive, with the audio, and then you respond back to it, but it seemed interesting because I never had it to where they start off teaching you words and sentences right off the bat, and they make you repeat it, the pronunciations and stuff like that. And what I saw, I really liked, with Pimsleur. So then I went and ordered Pimsleur, and I did the first lesson. And I actually did the first lesson on YouTube because they have like a demo in there where you can do the first lesson. And I went through it and I enjoyed it. I mean, by the time I got to the second lesson, I remembered everything from the first lesson. And of course, I already had that foundation, so I knew a couple of the verbs and stuff, and some of the terms from before, with my other Spanish learning. But with Pimsleur, I learned so much more. And like I said, when it comes to Spanish learning, I have an off and on relationship with it. So the first time I went through Pimsleur, I got all the way to the end of disc 1, and that was about 30 lessons. And I learned a lot, because out of all the Spanish learning I have, I would say that with Pimsleur, out of 100%, 50% of the Spanish that I know came from Pimsleur. I would say about 20% came from Rosetta Stone. Another 20% came from schools, all the different schools, college, middle, and high. And then I would say the last 10% is probably like stuff I learned, from online and reading books and stuff like that. So yeah, with Pimsleur, I learned a lot, and that was the first time around. But then, I had a situation in my life to where I couldn't continue. I didn't have the time to continue Spanish. So a few months went past, and no, actually about a month and a half went past until I decided to come back and start studying Spanish again. So like I said, I like to start at the beginning. So I went back to disc 1, did all of disc 1, and I got to disc 2. And everything that I remembered from disc 1, I was much better at it when I came back, when I started over at disc 1, from the first time that I stopped, doing Pimsleur. So when I got to the second CD, it was just so easy. And I made it all the way through the second CD, and then I actually stopped studying Spanish again. But I actually knew a lot of Spanish just from making it through the second CD. So now I'm back again, and I'm starting on the first CD, and I'm hoping to make it all the way through it this time, because it's 3 CDs. And it seems like every time when I stop and I come back to it, it gets much easier. And of course that's the way it should be, but since last time I studied, I think it's been about 3 months since last I studied Spanish, and I still retain a lot. And see, that's the thing with Pimsleur, is that you retain a lot. You can come back after 6 months later and you will still remember, I would probably say about 65 to 75% of the content that you learned, because that's how it is with me. It's been about 3 or 4 months since last I studied Spanish, and I retained, I would say, about 80% of what I learned. And I still remember stuff that I learned, from disc number 2, which I haven't even touched on yet, So, Pimsleur, and it's the same thing with Rosetta Stone. I still remember some things from Rosetta Stone, but not as well as I do with Pimsleur. And I spend way more time, trying to learn with Rosetta Stone than I did with Pimsleur. But I think Pimsleur works better. And yes, well, actually, no, this is not a, paid advertisement for Pimsleur. I'm just giving my Spanish learning experience. And if I were to suggest any program, I will suggest what works for you. Because if you're a visual learner, I would say that you may want to work with Pimsleur. With Rosetta Stone, because it's very visual. They have everything else too. They have writing, audio, so you get to listen and write and stuff like that and respond. But I think that would probably be better for people who are visually inclined. Me, I'm the same way. Like, I learn through many different ways. I'm a bad learner through listening. That's me. I can learn visually by seeing somebody do it and then I do it, or I can learn by hands-on. That's the type of person that I really am, a hands-on person. But still, I did great with just only listening, because with Pimsleur, you listen, and I think I'm gonna put the video up of me doing a lesson so you can actually see how it works and stuff. And pretty much they will tell you what a word means. Like, they will say comer, which means to eat. So they will say comer, and then he will say, you say comer, and then you say comer, and he will say to eat is comer. So you repeat it and stuff like that, and then within the first lesson of the first CD, you will actually structure a sentence. So And this is what I'm about to say is not within the first lesson, but you will learn this. So they will teach you comer through the whole thing, and then they will teach you how to say I want to eat. So you will say quiero comer, or I want to eat with Luisa. So quiero comer con Luisa. You will actually learn how to structure that sentence, throughout the whole Pimsleur. And they teach you the basics. They don't start off with, complicated things. They start you off with things that you would need to know. They start you off with the type of stuff that you would need to know if you were to step off a plane and didn't know where the hell you were. They give you the means to navigate and to work with, within the environment that you're in. Because if you were dumped in Cuba and you wanted to find your way out of Cuba, you will want to know how to communicate with the people, on how to get around the city, what you need, how to ask people to help you, how to ask people, what do you need to do this, or how can I get you to do this, stuff like that. And that's how Pimsleur is. But with Rosetta Stone, they actually start you off with stuff that you don't need to know. They start you off with saying the grass is green, or the sky is blue, and stuff like that, or the leaf is orange, or the bicycle is green. You don't need to know that type of stuff. And that's why I would prefer or reference Pimsleur over Rosetta Stone, because Pimsleur gives you stuff that you need to know. Things to help you navigate your way through Spanish-speaking America or Latin America. Rosetta Stone is more, it seems like more of a kid activity to me. Something that a family would do together. Just to learn Spanish, to have a family activity together. But I would suggest having more than just one Spanish learning tool. I think that if you use Pimsleur and Rosetta Stone together, that's even the better right there. Because you're getting the best of both worlds. Or, Pimsleur in another method. But I would say for your core learning, start off with Pimsleur, because even if you don't know Spanish, you're fresh in Spanish, you don't know not one word in Spanish, Pimsleur, by the end of the first lesson, will have you speaking your first sentence in Spanish. So I do recommend Pimsleur, as a tool for people to learn Spanish. But I haven't finished Pimsleur yet. Like I said, I haven't made it to the third CD. I made it to the end of the second CD, and I haven't got to the third one yet. And then they have bonus content after that. But after I get done, using Pimsleur, I'm gonna move on to speaking Spanish like crazy, because it's very similar to Pimsleur. I started using it at the same time I was using Pimsleur, but it was just too much. It was like an overload for me. And then speaking Spanish like crazy is actually a little bit more complicated than Pimsleur. They use more slang and stuff like that, and it's a much faster pace. So I wanted to get my grounds, my basics, my structure built up with Pimsleur first, and then move on to that. Get my structure in Spanish speaking first, and then move on to slang and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's pretty much been my journey, with learning Spanish. And above all the tools that I've used to learn Spanish, I would say that Pimsleur is the best, then Rosetta Stone, because if you combine those together, yeah, it would be very expensive if you did. I think it would cost somewhere near $1,000 if you were to buy both of them, because Pimsleur costs like $200, and Rosetta Stone costs about $400, but it could cost more if you buy more CDs. So it can cost around $1,000 if you wanted both of them. But if you had to choose between either one of them, I would say Pimsleur. So that's all I have to say about that. But I do want to make more videos in the future, my progress with learning Spanish and language learning and stuff like that, because after I get done obtaining a certain fluency in Spanish, I do want to move on to other languages like Portuguese, because Portuguese is similar to Spanish, so I would like to learn Portuguese next, and then I would like to learn Japanese. Now I know that's far off, from English and Portuguese and Spanish, but it's just something I wanted to learn, for a long time, especially because I used to watch anime a lot, so I did want to pick up, Japanese for that reason, also. So yeah, that's all I gotta say. So hopefully I'll be talking to you guys in the next video. Adios.